What it do, cuckolds? It's our boy the Hater once again, and the Hater has really been enjoying himself these last few days. Well, all of the haters flipping out. The Hater loves it. He gets off on it. But anyways, going with that same kind of trend, if you will, today's video is going to be further evidence that everyone has lost their minds, but obviously with a little bit of that Hater flair, and another thing for all the rest of y'alls. So, as the title suggests, this video is going to be about none other than Cody Rhodes and Jey Uso, but more specifically, it's not really about them per se. It's more about what they represent, right? The video is more about what they actually are, and I will show once and for all that the Hater has been consistent the entire time. Here's the difference though. I'm also going to point out them distinctions. So, unlike other videos, this will not be segment by segment, but it will be point by point. So, the thesis of this video, the premise of this video, the argument of this video is that Cody Rhodes and Jey Uso are one and the same. They're obviously two different wrestlers, but they represent the same thing. So, in other words, if you're okay with Cody Rhodes winning the Rumble, you should totally be okay with Jey Uso winning the Rumble. And especially considering that Cody Rhodes won it twice. So, what is the similarity that I'm speaking of here, right? What is the main point of my video? Well, it's very simple, right? No matter how you cut it, no matter how you decide to make it make sense to you or whatever the case may be, the reality is that Jey Uso is a mid-carder, right? He can call himself main event Jey Uso, and he can pretend he's a main eventer, but we all know he's a mid-carder, right? And I think that pretty much speaks to why most people are upset that he won the Royal Rumble, because he's a mid-carder that loses all his matches, even though I'm pretty sure he's won more matches than Drew McIntyre and CM Punk combined this year, because he's wrestled 40, 50 times. It's another thing. One of the comments was oh, the Hater said that Jey Uso doesn't, that Drew McIntyre doesn't wrestle, but Jey Uso doesn't wrestle either. It's that's not, I've never said that before in my life. Drew McIntyre doesn't show up. It's not about wins and losses. It's not a real sport, right? It's about showing up and entertaining people. Drew McIntyre doesn't show up, so he doesn't get to be rewarded with a Royal Rumble win, especially considering that he won the Royal Rumble once and nothing really came of it. He's already back to being a mid-card jobber. But anyways, we're going to talk about him a little bit too, because all of this shit applies to him as well. This is not exclusive to Jey Uso and Cody Rhodes. As a matter of fact, the argument is that this applies to virtually everybody, right? So it's like this, right? Jey Uso is a mid-carder that people got behind so he could win the Rumble, and he won the Rumble, right? Now, how would anyone reasonable describe Cody Rhodes? Well, I would say that he's a mid-carder whom the fans got behind, who ended up winning the Royal Rumble not once, but twice, right? Cody Rhodes is the same thing as Jey Uso, an aging mid-carder who's getting his opportunity now to maybe be in the main event, right? I would even argue that even though Cody Rhodes is the world champion, he still feels like a mid-carder, right? As evidenced by the fact that the vast majority of the time he belongs in the mid-card, or he's wrestling other mid-card wrestlers. The only time this guy legitimately main events anything is if it's a multi-man match, or if Roman Reigns or someone superior to him is otherwise involved, right? So with that being said, how can anyone be upset at Jey Uso if they supported Cody Rhodes, right? We've established in yesterday's video that this company is lacking what I'm going to now dub Night 2 main eventers, right? The company has been able to make a lot of bullshit Night 1 main eventers. For example, AJ Styles is technically, according to WWE, a Night 1 main eventer. I mean, there's a slew of asterisks there. Number one, it doesn't count because it wasn't a real match. It was a cinematic thing. That's one. Two, it's not a real main event because it's Night 1. And three, I'm not even sure if this could even count as the main event of that night, because the people were just watching it on TV like the rest of us. Imagine going there and just I don't think there was going there because I think it was during the pandemic era, but you understand what I'm getting at, right? It doesn't have that same feel. It's not the draw. But anyways, neither here nor there, cuckwads. The reality is that all of these Night 2 main eventers are gone, right? It's pretty much Randy Orton, John Cena, and Roman Reigns. That's it. Everybody else is a Night 1 cuck. As a matter of fact, I don't think there's even one more night 2 main eventer aside from Drew McIntyre, right? It's those 4 guys. Nobody else in the company knows anything about main eventing WrestleMania or being the face of the company. And it's probably going to stay that way for a while, as long as people like Cena and Roman Reigns still exist. But anyways, you know, you get what you get and you don't get upset. So the premise of this video, going back to that real quick, is that nobody who likes Cody Rhodes should be upset at Jey Uso. Let's be real. Cody Rhodes was worse than a mid-carder. Cody Rhodes was an undercard jobber who all of a sudden comes back and is thrust into the main event scene, pissing off countless people that understand things like me, right? I was like, what the fuck is this? Why is this mid-carder in the main event? Why is Rudy Poo Drew, who would come out playing the air guitar, now a main eventer? You know what I mean? These things have to be addressed and they have to be accounted for. Even Jinder Mahal. Why are these guys main eventers? Now, you'll notice something that I just said there, right? Jinder Mahal versus Drew McIntyre, right? Here's the difference. And I'm going to group Jinder Mahal and Jey Uso in the same category. The unexpected nature of them becoming main eventers is exactly what makes them worthwhile, right? Because at the very least, they entertained some of us by doing something unexpected. Now, in addition to that, it should also be noted that when I say unexpected, it's not just the element of, oh, I didn't expect this, but it happened nevertheless. I mean, that's cute and everything, but the real reason is this. When something unexpected happens, that means that nobody wanted it to happen, right? Because once again, wrestling is a fake sport, right? It's not unexpected like, for example, when, I don't know, Ilya Topuria beat Bryce Mitchell and then went on to become like the champion and quote-unquote a massive megastar, right? That's unexpected in a real sport. It's not unexpected like the Washington Commanders made it all the way to the conference championship. Nobody could have ever predicted that happening, right? That's a different level of unexpected because that's in a real sport. Likewise, in wrestling, there's absolutely nothing unexpected about Drew McIntyre winning the Royal Rumble in a dearth year where nobody was expected to do anything, right? It's not unexpected, obviously, for Cody Rhodes to go and win the Rumble twice because, number one, we all expected it, and number two, when he came back, he didn't come back as a mid-carder. He came back, I mean, he was the same mid-carder, but he came back as a main eventer, right? Now, it should be noted that he came back as a main eventer in name only. He had done nothing to earn the fact that he's a main eventer, especially in WWE. Like Cody Rhodes was a mid-carder in AEW too. People tend to forget. They want to pretend that he was this big deal in AEW. No, he never became AEW World Champion even, right? He was a solid AEW mid-carder who was presented as a big deal because he's Cody Rhodes, but he was still a mid-carder. So, if, for example, you can accept the fact that Drew McIntyre has lost like 95% of his matches during the main stint of his career when he was with 3MB, he would just lose to like El Torito. Like El Torito would like Hurricane Rana Drew McIntyre. You know what I mean? And this guy then went on to beat Brock Lesnar, right? So if you're willing to accept that, and you're willing to accept that Stardust went from following nobody around and pretending to find the cosmic key, following himself basically, like just hopping around like an idiot backstage and feuding and losing to Stephen Amell, a D-list actor, then you surely can accept the fact that Jey Uso is the next stage in this evolution, right? You've all acquiesced to this. You've all agreed that this is what you want, apparently. You want the Drew McIntyres to win the Rumble. You want Cody Rhodes to win the Rumble. I didn't want any of them to win the Rumble. I don't even want Jey Uso to win the Royal Rumble for the 19th time. I wanted Big Match John to do it, right? And if it weren't going to be him, it should have been good old Roman Reigns. But that's not what happened. And once Roman Reigns and CM Punk were both eliminated within like 10 seconds of each other, even less probably, right? Then the match shifted focus. Now the match became not which one of the favorites is going to win, but are we going to have an underdog moment? Or is Cena going to become Super Cena again? Especially considering that it was a rare form for the commentators who were saying Cena is like Superman, right? They were putting over that really well. This is what put me in the edge of my seat. I don't give a flying fuck who wins the Royal Rumble. You know what I mean? Nobody that I like was really in contention. I would want Braun Breaker or LA Knight to win if everything was, fair. And then I would want Cena to win because I like Cena and it's his last WrestleMania. It's his last Royal Rumble as well, right? And I would also like for him to win 3 Royal Rumbles. So my order was LA Knight, Braun Breaker, Cena. I didn't even consider the possibility of Jey Uso winning. That's what made it an edge of the seat moment. Do you understand? Now compare that, right, with Jinder Mahal winning that like 6-man match that got him the number one contendership. I knew he was going to win, but Sami Zayn was involved. You never know with Sami Zayn. They might make this guy the world champion tomorrow, you know, because he's always like one step away, it seems like. But I thought to myself, the only one here who's not an absolute aggressive jobber and who could feasibly like match up to Randy Orton physically at least is Jinder Mahal or Mojo Rawley. But Mojo Rawley is a colossal jobber, so it ain't gonna be him. The writing was on the wall, right? Like Jinder Mahal was the second guy to be, like the second to last guy to be eliminated from the, you know, coveted Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal. So he was on the rise, and he also had made a significant change in his physique. But it was still unexpected, right? The Randy Orton match, I knew he was going to beat Randy Orton at that point. I was like, this is a done deal. Like, they're not going to put Jinder Mahal on pay-per-view to lose to Orton. Like, this is a jobber match, you know? The same cannot be said about Gunther versus Jey Uso. Despite the fact that people continue to pretend and gaslight themselves that Gunther is somehow some credible champion and some good wrestler, the reality is that he's not. And that most casual fans are going to expect Jey Uso to beat Gunther because Gunther bores everyone half to sleep. So, as far as the WrestleMania match goes, you know, there was one guy who left like a 7-paragraph comment that I didn't really read the whole thing, obviously, right? Because it was boring and poorly written. But he was like, oh, so you're saying just because... I hate people that start questions or even statements with, oh, so what you're saying is like, don't straw man me. That's not going to work. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, that ain't going to work on the hater. But basically, he was like, oh, so what you're saying is that Gunther sucks, so therefore it's okay for Jey Uso to suck and then to have a match. I mean, no, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that because the choice has been made to make a jobber a champion, then nobody should be surprised that a jobber is the challenger. Like, let's be real. If it's Cena versus Gunther, nobody would want Gunther to win, and nobody would honestly expect Gunther to beat Cena at the WrestleMania, especially since, in my personal opinion, Gunther is not on his way out. He's going to have a Samoa Joe role for like a long time coming, but he's not going to be this massive main eventer that he currently isn't. You know what I mean? So, with that being said, let's also take a look into the actual expectations, right? So, at the very least, Gunther was wrestling Jey Uso and was in a program with him leading up to Royal Rumble, right? So you have something built in. If Drew McIntyre won, who is he going to wrestle? Cody Rhodes? Nobody wants to watch that. Gunther versus Drew McIntyre? You might as well throw Sheamus in there and make it for the Intercontinental title if that's the decision you're going to make. So think about that logically. Nobody respects or has any admiration or credibility for the World Heavyweight Championship as it is today. So Jey Uso winning the Royal Rumble and cashing in on Gunther, which is probably what's going to happen, unless hopefully Gunther drops it, right? This is nothing to write home about. This is the equivalent of Austin Theory winning the Money in the Bank and cashing it in for the United States title. I would even argue the United States title is more preeminent and more important than the World Heavyweight Championship because nobody cares about it. You know, like this is the first time in a long time where it's been very clear. There was a time when like Triple H was the World Heavyweight Champion that nobody cared about the WWE title, right? Like I hate to say it, JBL, one of my personal favorites, but he was the secondary champion when he was on SmackDown, right? Edge was the secondary champion when he was on SmackDown. Cena was the primary champion on Raw during that time. He might trade it off with like, you know, Triple H and things like that. Like the World Heavyweight title was the #1 title when it was on Raw, right? But things change. And now the WWE title is back to the prominent glory that it deserves, being that it's the most important wrestling title of all time. So with that being said, it's being wasted on Cody, but if that title is being wasted on Cody, surely people can be okay with the bullshit title being wasted on Jey Uso. In other words, just because WWE told you that Gunther and Cody are championship material does not make them championship material. And just because some neckbeard online told you Jey Uso doesn't deserve to win the Rumble doesn't make it true. I agree that Jey Uso wouldn't deserve to win the Royal Rumble if the Royal Rumble was a star-studded affair. But let's be real. The people in the Rumble were a mixture of aging wrestlers, including Jey Uso, but aging wrestlers including people like Rey Mysterio, who obviously have no chance of winning, AJ Styles, who nobody even expected to be there, you know, and other aging, you know, quasi-aging wrestlers like LA Knight, like, you know, Roman Reigns, CM Punk, obviously, and of course, Cena, right? That's who was in this Rumble. And of those people, the only one who's a star is John Cena and maybe Roman Reigns. Now, Roman Reigns couldn't really win the Royal Rumble. I mean, I thought obviously he was a favorite, but in hindsight, you realize that like it makes no sense. And the hater's been saying this for months, that Roman Reigns needs to like reestablish himself as a main eventer, because he spent like last year effectively wrestling Solo Sikoa, who's been gone for the company for like 2 months for no reason, or for a month, right? So which person makes sense? Well, unlike last year's Royal Rumble and the year before that, where it was basically Cody Rhodes or nobody else, or Cody Rhodes and maybe CM Punk last year, right? This year, nobody was a favorite beyond the 3 favorites that I mentioned. So the swerve, the most important part of the Rumble was not Jey Uso winning. The biggest, if you will, mark out moment that the hater had was when I didn't care about Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins being eliminated, because like, quite frankly, I thought CM Punk was the most likely to win. But after they get eliminated, immediately after, Logan Paul, my new personal hero, throws over this jobber CM Punk, and all of a sudden, now we have a completely different match. That was the mark-out moment. When the last 3 people were one guy that you expect, and 2 people, losing my voice, cucks, and 2 people that you wouldn't expect. Namely, what's his name? Logan Paul and Jey Uso, right? Both of those guys serve the same thing, right? If it was Logan Paul, it would be equally good. It has nothing to do with whether I want Logan Paul or Jey Uso to win. So, going back to the point of this video, the reality is that WWE is full of Jey Usos and full of Cody Rhodeses. Drew McIntyre is one of them. He came back, and all of a sudden he's not a jobber anymore because he grew chest hair. Okay, cool. We accept it because we're like, all right, we're going to give this guy another chance. So, if you accept jobbers that get fired getting another chance, how can you not accept the one guy that's been wrestling basically every week getting a chance, right? Isn't this what we want? This is what the hater's been saying, right? That people like Cody Rhodes, people like Roman Reigns don't wrestle. Now, just because I'm singling these 2 guys out because they wrestle the least and they don't deserve it, doesn't mean that people like Gunther or Cena or Roman Reigns or anybody else are not, or even CM Punk, are not guilty of the same crime, right? That's the fundamental distinction here. The point is that all these people aren't wrestling. You could even add Braun Breaker to that list. He doesn't deserve it because he wrestles once every 3 weeks, you know? Now, this is John Cena's farewell tour, so that gives him points. But at the same time, his farewell tour has been 2 matches, or 2 appearances rather, you know? And 2 matches, maybe a 3rd appearance. So it's like, this is not a good farewell tour. You expect this last year to be like every pay-per-view, you know, occasionally wrestling on Raw, so people can see Cena for the last time. So people that didn't have a chance to go to, people that live in Canada that can't make it to Elimination Chamber, may be able to see him in, I don't know, like in Lansing, Michigan, when Raw rolls up or SmackDown rolls up. That was the implication. But Cena ain't wrestling. You know, Roman Reigns ain't wrestling. Solo Sikoa right now ain't wrestling. You know? And then there's people who honestly have the nerve to say dumb shit like, well, it would have been cool if it was Jacob Fatu. What? If Jey Uso is a jobber, Jacob Fatu is an undercard nobody. Jacob Fatu, first of all, is the exact same thing as Jey Uso, except he's not as over, right? He's fatter, he's uglier, he's been around less time, and he's achieved nothing. Like, are you kidding me? You want this guy to win the Royal Rumble? I mean, I would be okay with that to a certain extent, because it would be unexpected, but not as unexpected and not as noteworthy as Jey Uso winning. Especially when compared, the way that I'm comparing, to someone else winning, like the cuckster himself, Cody Rhodes. That was not unexpected at all. I was like, oh shit, Cody Rhodes is here. I wonder how long it'll take for him to be champion. The only unexpected thing was Roman Reigns beating him at WrestleMania 39. That was kind of a shocker, and that match was awesome, right? Now, people may have thought the match was awesome because the match was good itself. No, not really. It also wasn't awesome because Roman Reigns won. I mean, that adds to it because I don't like Cody Rhodes. But the reality is that this has nothing to do with who deserves it or who's going to win or who's going to main event WrestleMania. Like, it doesn't matter. If you're under the pretense that Jey Uso is going to main event WrestleMania, in my personal opinion, you're completely wrong. He might eke out a night 1 main event, but I doubt it. This feels like a night 1 mid-card match, and they're going to have Charlotte versus Rhea Ripley main event night 1, and then hopefully Cena win the title on night 2. Right? That's the things that I want to see. Now, like, the fact that the Rumble was ruined, to me, is not a good argument, because it wasn't ruined. It provided excitement, and it was a good match. And as a result, we now have someone that is being pushed semi-organically, right? I can't think of the last time a person was organically pushed in a WWE. And insofar as mid-carders who have lost every match, all of a sudden being exploded onto the main event scene, all of you fucks, all of your smart heroes are like this. CM Punk was a nobody. He won the title, he went back to being a mid-carder. Daniel Bryan did nothing to earn it. He was getting his ass beat by Bray Wyatt, who now everyone loves, rest in peace, right, at the Rumble in what was an excellent match. But because he was over, they gave him the WrestleMania main event, right, which the hater hated. But not because, oh, Daniel Bryan didn't deserve it. I don't give a flying fuck about that, right? Only because they subverted the plans. Batista won the Rumble, and the fans changed it, right? Not the fans led to this decision. The fans changed it, quote unquote, right? Furthermore, another difference is this. You expected that shit to happen. As soon as Daniel Bryan left the Wyatt family, you're like, all right, I see where this is going. He's going to win at WrestleMania somehow. You know what I mean? And what about Kofi Kingston? Don't all of you neckbeards love Kofi Kingston and Kofi Mania? I mean, that is like one of the most undeserved pushes of all time. Kofi Kingston was a tag team nobody, right? He was like the third guy in the tag team. And during that time, he was a colossal jobber. Like, he was getting his ass beat for 10 years. Yeah, the New Day was successful, but that's because they were wrestling people like primetime players and fucking like Rowan and Harper, who none of these tag teams are even around anymore. Right? Rest in peace, Luke Harper. But what about Jey Uso, who, instead of being a tag team jobber, has fiddled for the last 3 or 4 years with being in occasional main events, right? Distancing himself from his tag team partner, right? As part of the storyline. Not as like, oh, Kofi Kingston's getting cheers now, so fuck the New Day. Now it's going to be like Kofi Mania. Nobody asked for that. Nobody wanted that. That became like, once the writing was on the wall, oh, Kofi Kingston is getting cheered and people are talking about it, Vince McMahon's like, all right, New Day has to win a gauntlet match. Or like, that's it. Kofi Kingston is going to be exactly where he belongs. A mid-card match at WrestleMania for the world title. Still a mid-card match. It didn't main event shit, right? And he's going to beat Daniel Bryan. That's what's going to happen. You know that's what's going to happen. But with Jey Uso, you don't know what's going to happen. So there are distinctions between Jey Uso and Cody Rhodes and everyone else that I mentioned. But in my opinion, these distinctions go towards my argument, not the argument of the morons, right? But ultimately, it doesn't matter how you slice this pie, cucks. It doesn't matter how the cookie crumbles. The reality is that Jey Uso, Cody Rhodes, what's his face, Drew McIntyre, and CM Punk even are the same thing. CM Punk did not leave this company as a main eventer. He left this company as a nobody who was out of shape, got his ass beat by The Undertaker, and failed in his quest to main event WrestleMania. And that is a good way to leave compared to people like Cody Rhodes and Drew McIntyre, who left with humiliating gimmicks and like a win-loss record that nobody would ever brag about. You see what I'm saying? So, with that being said, it's like, if these guys get a chance, why can't Jey Uso get a chance, cunts? You know what I'm saying? If you want to be fair about it. And I've heard it all. Jey Uso only has 4 moves. Well, some of you want Jacob Fatu to win the Rumble. Some of these same people want Roman Reigns to come back. Well, I got news for you, pal. As the hater has been saying for nearly a year now, all 3 of these guys have the same moves. They have the Samoan moveset. So who the fuck cares if Jey Uso does the spear and the splash, or if Roman Reigns does the Superman punch and the spear? Their moves deviate, their move sets, I should say, deviate by 1 move. They each have the 4 or 5 Samoan moves, and then they each do 1 extra move. Right? I expect Jey Uso to get a new finisher now that this is happening. Just like Daniel Bryan when he got his push. But who cares, even if he doesn't? Nobody gives a flying rat's ass about this. The fact of the matter, cuckwads, is exactly what I've been saying this entire time. That this is a good Rumble. The winner is not a great winner. But within the context of who the other options were, you're arguing for the same shit. Like, if you're arguing for good old John Cena, big match John, then I understand. But if you're arguing for Randy Orton, let's say, if you're arguing for Drew McIntyre, these are all mid-carders. The fact that Randy Orton is a 15-time, whatever the fuck he is, world champion doesn't eliminate the reality that last WrestleMania, he was feuding with Logan Paul for the U.S. title, a title that he would laugh at in the past. You see what I'm saying? All of these guys are mid-carders. So why does it matter which mid-carder is going to wrestle Gunther, another mid-carder, for the mid-card belt? That's the point. Not, oh, Gunther sucks, so let's put another guy that sucks with him when we have all these other guys that are great. I would agree. That would be a travesty if the WWE was filled with great guys. So what do you want the hater to do? You want me to lie and say, oh, there's many more deserving people than Jey Uso? Like who, cucks? Like who? Who deserves it more? Name 2 people, right? You can name maybe LA Knight. You can make that argument. But it's a similar argument. That comes down to tastes. They have a similar win-loss record. They were both mid-card champions, right? And they're both over. I happen to like LA Knight more, so I'd be happier if LA Knight won. I would mark out like fuck if LA Knight won, right? But that's not what happened. You don't always get what you want. Now, if you're arguing that it should be CM Punk, who doesn't deserve it at all, this is the same fucking asshole that left the company, then tried to bury the company, right? He deserves it more than Jey Uso, who's a fucking soldier that's been busting his ass, wrestling people like Titus O'Neil and fucking Darren Young and like, you know, jobbers like Austin Theory. This guy's out there every week wrestling people that suck ass because he sucks ass. But other people that suck ass, like Drew McIntyre, get to come in, they become NXT champion. You know, a couple of things get shuffled around. All of a sudden, Drew McIntyre, who lost like 10 weeks in a row on Raw, kicks Brock Lesnar in the face and becomes the champion. Now, if the argument is Jey Uso doesn't feel like a star and Drew McIntyre does feel like a star, that I can get behind. That's a fact of life. You know, the fact of the matter is the star power just isn't there with Jey Uso. But I don't care. Because there's many other wrestlers like Kofi Kingston who have zero star power, who have zero charisma, who have zero capacity to cut a promo until recently, right? And who have gotten similar shots. I would argue that Kofi Kingston, Kofi Mania, is a much better written storyline than Jey Uso winning the shitty world title against Gunther. You see what I'm saying? All of these things come together to form an argument that I'm making. And the argument is that you people, not just my fans, because I know it's not, I know it's not most of my fans, it's a small minority of the dumbest of my fans, right? And I don't give a fuck. Oh, there was one guy, he was like, you owe me an apology. Like this fucking moron. He said, you owe me an apology because you had a bad take on Jey Uso. And then he said, oh, like, first of all, he was like, you're making hundreds of thousands of dollars. No, I'm not, motherfucker. If I was, the fuck? If you lost your mind? If I was, this video would be a completely different video. You know, it would have like crazy ass, I would have more time on my hands. I would quit my job, obviously, if I was making hundreds of thousands. And these videos would be like fucking Hollywood productions at this point. But he was like, and you owe me money because like I'm a viewer. Some like fucking borderline retarded shit, you know what I mean? But these people don't understand anything. The vast majority of my fans and the vast majority of the WWE audience is going to be just fine with Jey Uso. But there is a vocal minority that isn't okay with it, right? And a lot of people are like, no, the vocal minority is you, hater. What are you talking about? You know what I mean? This is like the one time when the hater is not a vocal minority. And even then, nobody's happy. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're like, oh, the Jey Uso winning the Rumble video has like a 40% dislike ratio. Right, that means 60% liked it. Right? So how is the 60% the vocal minority? The minority is less than 50%. Dumb fucks. Learn your stat. But anyways, that's neither here nor there. The fact of the matter is that whatever the case may be, whatever the fans may want, none of this shit matters. You get what you get, and you shut the fuck up, and you don't get upset, cuckolds. That's how the world works. You don't always get what you want, but if what you wanted is the same thing, just dressed up a little differently, oh, Drew McIntyre is better than Jey Uso. Why is he better? Oh, he just is. Oh, like one of the comments that I read, I don't know if it was in one of my videos or somewhere else, they're like, this person has a reason to win for this. Horrible reasons, right? One of them was like, Drew is pissed at the world that he doesn't win. Yeah, so what? That's the character that I'm supposed to get behind? Oh, this guy's mad at everybody? I don't give a fuck. He's mad at Roman Reigns? Go wrestle Roman Reigns. Why do you even want to win the Royal Rumble? Cut. But anyways, this is just how the world works, and you people need to understand the realities of how the world operates, and you need to understand that this is just how it is for y'alls, man. You know, sometimes you get what you want, sometimes you don't. And if you're someone that thinks that if you don't get what you want, you should turn off the TV, then do me a favor, turn off the TV. Likewise, if you don't like what the hater's saying, the hater's not going to change because some idiot, like some guy's like, oh, you've been cooked, you've been erased. No, I haven't. No, I haven't. Like, you're going to see how many likes this video has and how many likes your dumbass comment has in this video. You see what I'm saying? No, I haven't been ratioed, right? Even if I were, Even if I was the only person that thought this, who gives a fuck? If I'm the only person in the world that sees that Cody Rhodes and Jey Uso are the same exact thing, right? And therefore, that Drew McIntyre is in the same category. So is Kofi Kingston. So are all these mid-carders that get elevated to the main event basically for nothing, right? Drew McIntyre didn't do anything to earn his Royal Rumble win, right? It's the same thing. He was a mid-carder teaming with Dolph Ziggler and failing to win the tag team titles. Then all of a sudden, he becomes, the lackey of Baron Corbin. And then before you know it, he beats Lesnar, right? This is how things are sometimes. So if you're okay with any of those, you should be okay with this too. The hater wasn't okay with any of those, and the hater is not okay with Jey Uso winning. However, if it's going to be a mid-carder, why not Jey Uso? Cucks.